this meeting of the Sullivan County Delegation to order. And I'd like to begin, and I would ask Representative Tanner to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Representative Tanner. Okay, now I will go around, welcome, and I will go around for introductions, starting with Representative Sullivan, please.
Representative Brian Sullivan, Sullivan County District 1, representing Grantham, Springfield, Cornish, and Plainfield.
Representative Judy Aaron, representing Sullivan County District 7, which is for the towns of Ackworth, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington.
Representative Callum, representing Sullivan 6, which is Unity and Newport.
Representative Stephen Smith, Sullivan 11, Ackworth, Charlestown, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington.
Representative Skip Rollins, District 6, Newport Unity.
I guess you have delegate, and then I'll turn it over to the commission to introduce themselves.
Representative Walt Stapleton, Sullivan County, District 5, Claremont, Ward 3.
Linda Tanner, Sullivan, District 9, the towns of Plainfield, Cornish, Grantham, Croydon, Newport, Sunapee, Springfield, and Unity.
Gary Merchant, Sullivan District 4, Claremont Ward 2.
Terry Spilsbury, representing Charlestown District 8.
Sue Gutling, representing Sullivan 2, Sunapee, and
in Claremont Ward 1.
Okay, again, Representative John Cloutier, Sullivan District 10, which comprises the entire city of Claremont. Okay, now I will, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. And now I will turn it over to the commissioners. I'm sorry about that. Introduce yourselves, please, and any other elected officials and top managers here, please.
George Hebert, Commissioner, representing all of Sullivan County.
Joe Osgood, Commissioner.
Ben Nelson, Commissioner. And
And
Derek, your understaff.
Derek Rowland, County Manager, and our department heads in the audience, Mary Burke, Facilities and Operations, Hilary Snide, Human Resources, Louis Thibodeau, our interim nursing home administrator, also our business office manager, and Lionel Chu, Director of Natural Resources.
Okay, thank you very much, Manager, for everybody introducing themselves. Okay, I'm going to begin. I'm sorry.
may I just ask you under B, on 2, should that be a supplemental appropriation of $650,000?
It's 63 million.
I know, right, but I'm reading the motion and voting sheet.
So the actual motion for 650 added to the FY23 budget, but our bond council advised us that on the agenda to make the appropriation in line with the bond resolution, which is for the total project.
But it's not typed correctly on the agenda.
Well, it is.
Something.
It's what the
What am
bond
I
council
voting
advised us
for?
to put on the agenda. I thought it was a little confusing, but the motion, I think, makes it clear that the supplemental appropriation for the 23 budget is only 650,000, not 63 million.
All right, yes, Representative Merchant.
Is the supplemental appropriation $63 million in addition to the $26 million?
No, I mean, in terms of the impact of the FY23 budget, it's the 650,000.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. I just, we're getting off and I do want to get started. But thank you very much for the clarification. So this public hearing is, and there are going to be 2 public hearings, and I'm going to open one public hearing, take testimony from the public. And this first one is on the issuance of $26 million in bonds to finance the Sullivan County healthcare renovation. This would be county money from property taxes. So this is that portion. And I will, once I open this hearing, as I said, give the public a chance to testify for or against, and if there's any questions that members of the delegation have of the public or anybody else from the commissioners or the county manager, this would be the time to ask them. I will then close once all testimony and questions have been answered, and I will open part B, which is the supplemental appropriation of $63 million to fund, and that's the total appropriation, not just the property tax portion of 26 million, but the Gopher money, the previous ARPA money, the money that Senator Shaheen got us, and the reserve from capital reserve that we're going to take. So I just want to be clear when addressing, you should try to, and I'll try to leave some leeway. But in other words, right now, we're going to focus on the property tax portion of $26 million in bonds. So I want to begin by opening the public hearing. Or is there any member of the public who wishes to testify in regards to the proposed $26 million in bonds to finance the Sullivan County healthcare renovation? Or is there any member from the, yes, go ahead, please. If you could come, identify yourself and where you live in Sullivan County, please.
My name is Louis Thibodeau. I'm the interim administrator at Sullivan County.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little bit, Mr.
Yes,
I
my
have
name
trouble
is-
understanding you.
My name is Louis Thibodeau. I'm the interim administrator at Sullivan County Healthcare. I live in Claremont, New Hampshire. I've been a resident of Claremont for over 20 years. So good afternoon, delegates, commissioners, everybody else here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As the interim administrator of Sullivan County Healthcare and as a taxpayer, I'm compelled to do so as an advocate for the residents, the staff, and taxpayers. I would like to ask you to truly keep in mind the importance and the urgency of the renovation project. Specifically, ask yourself how you would feel if you were sharing a bathroom with 3 other residents in your own home, or sharing a shower room with 2 shower stalls and a tub amongst 42 residents using that utility, working in temperatures of 80 to 85 degrees due to issues with air conditioning equipment, or worrying about black water pipe failing in your office space. All of these hold true at the nursing home, including the black water pipe failure in the administrator's office in the past few weeks. Also, recruiting and retaining staff has been a significant challenge in the facility, as most of you are fully aware, and working in the facility in its current state is not helping in this matter at all. My concern is the impact of any further delay in regard to the residents, the staffing, and taxpayers. Time is money, and in this economic landscape, I don't think that's ever been more true. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thibodeau. Any questions from the delegation of Mr. Thibodeau? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Are there any further testimony? Yes, from members. Okay, yes, go ahead, please. Come to the mic and please, could you identify yourself, your name and your community of residents in Sullivan County?
My name is Vanessa Perrin. I am in Plainfield. I'd like to start off by handing you each something. So if the commissioners could pass this forward, please.
Okay, your
One
hand,
for
okay.
everybody.
All right. All right, thank you very much for that information. Please continue.
So this may run into the second part of what you have to discuss today, but I have this all encapsulated in one statement. So here we are again at the crossroads of voting on something that should have passed 4 years ago. There have been many of you who have fought this to get this project through, and several of you who have done your level best to make this as painful and unfruitful as possible, to say nothing of making it political, where politics has no business being. While I believe that the working group was created to get the details in order, they worked hard. I find it difficult to give you kudos on a project that should have already been finished by now, 4 years ago, in fact. For those of you who think your towns are above needing the services of county homes, jail, and sober houses, let me remind you of maybe inform you for the first time of how many from each of your own towns use these facilities that we, the taxpayers, pay for. Sunapee, you have 15% of the residents at Sullivan County Nursing Home. Charlestown, you have 12%. As far as inmate population goes, you have 20, Charlestown has 21, more than 10 other cities in this county. Sunapee, you have 5, more than 4 other towns tied to these. As I sit on the commissioners meeting yesterday, I heard some interesting news that this could have to go through a forgivable loan. I'm not sure if some of you will try to use this as an excuse to not move this project forward. Everyone does forgivable loans. The New Hampshire Development of Environmental Services does it, Paycheck Protection does this, 60 million of the 100 million for affordable housing program does this. We do not know if the government will ask for this back, as there is no precedent that could be set for this ARPA money. If you don't move, this ARPA money will disappear, and this fund for the nursing homes that has been created specifically by the governor for us will be gone. Stratford County is already soon to be knocking on the door for this money. In about 18 months, this money will be gone. Let me make another point. We will soon be looking at lawsuits. When water comes into a patient's room at 180 degrees and ceiling tiles fall in hallways below because shower rooms are overflowing from up above, and burst pipes and black water spills and plaster falls from walls. At what point do you think that either patients, families, or staff will not sue the county? Maybe even start suing the county for inhumane treatment. Months without showers, weeks without daylight. At the end of the day, they won't be coming after anyone but all of you who decided that this wasn't your top priority. Even though our own governor said it was the biggest need of the state. I think this fear of the forgivable excuses. Let's be clear, it's political. And we come to realize as a people that election time is among us again. Just like last time this was proposed and you all bailed hoping to get reelected, thinking that it won't raise our taxes and that you'll be a shoo-in. That won't happen this time. People do not see you as being fiscally responsible. They see you as stonewalling, stalling and abandoning the very people that need your help the most. The ones who have paid their taxes to Sullivan County, raised their children in Sullivan County, had businesses and been vital parts of our Sullivan County community. And now they can be shut away as if they do not matter and never had a say. If you think these residents don't know what's going on, you're wrong. Many of them are waiting to hear when. I've said this to a few of you that if you don't want your representative jobs any longer, then step down and do not run again. I personally will take pleasure in helping you accomplish that. Sitting in the positions that you all chose and then to pull these stunts is unacceptable. You have made a joke and a mockery of those who have worked so hard to see it through, including the governor and the commissioners of the Go for Money. If the Capital Reserve Fund is there with 25 million, what are you waiting for? What does your biased crystal ball tell you is the right time? Maybe when you're not up for re-election. Lockdowns and room lockdowns will be coming again for our elderly this winter. I received the latest letter from the nursing home. It's already starting as we continue to see massive testing and pushing of mandates. They are going to physically and emotionally be putting our loved ones once again at the mercy of isolation in a facility ill-equipped and call it protection. My mother passed away May 23rd, just barely there for a year. You all have a copy of this picture of my mother 8 months prior to her entering the nursing home, fully walking on her own, using full use of her left arm. A year later, and as she sits there 1 week before she passes away, meeting her first great-grandchild for the first time. This, my Sullivan County family, is what lockdowns and isolation have done to our elderly. Remember these people in the nursing homes come November, when the government decides to shut them down again. Room lockdowns, months without showers, weeks without sunlight. My mother personally went through 2 separate occasions where she went 4 weeks without a shower, 2 weeks without sunlight, literally not a single drop of daylight for 2 weeks. It's already happened and it will happen again because this facility at 97 years old is not capable of handling a pandemic. And while the pandemic is over, the government is not done using this as a pawn and therefore using our elderly, my mother, as pawns. So you have a decision to make today. Will you keep using our elderly as pawns or pretending that it's actually being fiscally responsible? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Perrin. Any questions of Mrs. Perrin from the delegation? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Perrin, for your testimony. Right. Okay, anybody else wish to testify on, for this hearing, please? Oh, Commissioner Osgood, you wish to be recognized. Go ahead.
I'm
please.
standing at the podium right now because I'm standing here as a resident of Ward 1. And I am very comfortable with a $26 million bond where it could have been more. I think this is definitely the time to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Osgood. Any questions of Commissioner Osgood? Okay, yes, Commissioner Nelson.
Do we want to step up or can I?
Yeah,
go
if
from
you
here?
don't mind, because this is a public hearing. Thank you for your cooperation.
This may bleed over into the 26 million is what gets it all started. We can't move forward with bond council unless you do an affirmative vote. We can't move forward with getting a guaranteed price without this vote. To go for the 25 million, the application isn't out, but they won't think we're serious without this vote. So this kicks it all off. I know there's some consternation about the forgivable loan instead of a grant. Recently, I've had the pleasure a couple times of going for a civics class at Stevens High School, and pleasantly surprised to see they still have a civics class. But something came up about mandates and stuff, and I told them the golden rule of government. The reason the feds get to mandate the speed limits on the highway is they control the highway funds. The reason the only legally enforceable mask mandate or vaccination mandate that the government can do is in healthcare because they control the CMS money. A lot of people at this table have worked really hard to get governor, council, fiscal committee to carve out $50 million. We have a promise of $25 million. A lot of you folks have worked hard for that. They have the money. The golden rule is they dictate how they spend it. For a lot of reasons, they've said they would they want to do a forgivable loan. And who are we to, as somebody said earlier, we're looking for the money, they control it, we'll take it however they give it. And it's already been said, forgivable loans are omnipresent. I can't name one that the government's ever said, we'll take it back. And so we need to move forward. And the other thing, I know we're all political animals. And if you tell me politics doesn't enter into this, I would think you're probably not being fully truthful. And far be it for me to give you political advice, although I've been at it for a while. The smart political thing to do is to vote this unanimous. You've got enough issues to hammer over each other's head. But if this were a unanimous vote, Democrat, Republican, you can go to your constituents and say, we took care of the most vulnerable in our population, the ones that need it, that have paid their taxes, and now it's time to get a little bit of it back. And we brought in $27 million of federal money into little old Sullivan County that's going to rattle around this county. And as already said, if we piss and moan over the details, say, well, we're not sure where we want it, it'll go somewhere else in a hurry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nelson, for your comments. Any questions of Commissioner Nelson from the delegation? Okay, is there any other member of the public who wishes to testify either for or against the issuance of $26 million in bonds to finance the Sullivan County healthcare renovation? Is there anybody else who wishes to testify? And it appears to be none, so I'm now going to close the first public hearing, Part A, on issuing $26 million in bonds to finance Sullivan County healthcare renovation. So this first public hearing is closed. I am now going to open the second public hearing, which is Part B, about the supplemental appropriation of $63 million to fund the Sullivan County healthcare renovation. Yes, Representative Sullivan, please, you have something to.
I just want to point out the difference between the agenda item, which says $63 million, which maybe it should say that, maybe it shouldn't, I don't care. That's the agenda. The actual motion that we're going to be voting on is to approve a supplemental appropriation of $650,000 to the fiscal year 2023. So I really don't know why the agenda looks like that. Don't really care. we're looking at $650,000, not $63 million. Derek, did I miss something on that? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, stand corrected then, I guess that's. Okay, but and now, thank you, Representative Sullivan. Any members of the public wish to testify? I'm sorry. Yes, Representative Smith.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Inquiry of the chair, then what is item agenda 5?
What? Okay. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. So item agenda 5 is a vote on a supplemental appropriation. Is that not $650,000? Okay. And then don't we also need a vote on the total allocation, making these two different items?
That's okay. I see the motion sheet now.
This is the hearing part.
Yep.
Items 5 and 6 or 4 and 5 are when we're out of the hearings and into voting mode.
Yeah, okay.
Question?
Yes, Representative.
To that same issue. Do we not need another agenda item that actually approves the project?
That we are seeking to fund through this bond recommendation and supplemental appropriation.
So item 4.
No, item 4 is voting on a bond recommendation. That doesn't say specifically that we, as a body, are approving the project. Is that a separate?
We'll be voting to approve this, which is the project. Resolution is the project.
Okay, so why is it a resolution and not a motion? Is what I'm also wondering is.
I believe that's what I was working with Representative Manager Furlan, working the bond. This is what the bond council has advised us, right? And I know that's advised you. You and worked with her to draft the resolution which you're going to be voting on.
So what would the motion be to accept or?
Reject the bond resolution. So, okay. And the bond resolution then includes both the approval of the project and the funding of the project. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Representative Merchant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to follow up on President Aaron. In the sequence, we talked about this before, having all these pieces come to fruition before we issue a bond, because we've talked about the need to have things all coalesce at one point. So is that still the case? That the bond attorney will not issue a bond if we don't have all the other pieces come together?
Yes, that's the case. She won't issue the bond. She'll issue an opinion letter, which is part of our application package to the bond bank. And the opinion letter is basically certifying that the first whereas paragraph validates that we have all the elements of the funding stack in hand in the amount of $63 million in order to move forward. So until she has validation that that's all in order, she will not issue the opinion letter. And without the opinion letter, there won't be a bond through the bond bank.
Okay. Yes, Representative Sullivan.
Just to reiterate, to be perfectly clear, if the $2 million from the federal budget doesn't show up, then this resolution is no longer valid. Is that correct?
It would, but it has shown up. We got a notice.
Okay, well, then for example, then.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it hadn't shown up, this would have been non-valid.
Not necessarily, because we have some up to language. So if part of the funding stack doesn't materialize precisely as it's written here, so instead of getting 25.2 million from Gopher, for example, if we get 24.9, doesn't mean that the whole project is unable to go forward, because it's just a matter of making up the difference from one of the other sources in the funding stack, whether it's capital reserves or our own ARPA money. So there's a little bit of flexibility written into this to account for the variation of the various components of the funding stack.
A small variation.
Okay. True, yeah, small variation. We don't have.
So if we got 15 million from Gopher, we would not be going forward. With
She would not be able to issue an opinion letter because we wouldn't have all the elements of the funding stack.
Just want to be clear as to how this sucker works.
Thank you. Thank you, Rancher Firm Representative Sullivan. Now, I just want to be clear because this is also a public hearing, and I know we can ask questions of members of the delegation, but is there any member of the public who wishes to testify either in support or opposition to the supplemental, I guess, as of 63 million? I'm sorry for if I had it on the agenda, but this is the way it's written. So, but anyone wants to testify in general to this supplement, as I said, on this supplemental appropriation. Okay. Anybody now, members of the delegation, want to ask questions too while we're in the public hearing phase of the county manager or the commissioners? Because this is the time now to ask them, because then once we close the public hearing, then we will get into the debate portion. Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
My question involves the $20 million identified for the bond as a first tranche. And why not the 26,000 that we were targeting for as pursuant to agenda item 2A?
Well, I believe the EFC, that's what they are recommending, that it be done in one tranche of 20 million and another tranche of 6 million. And I know the chair of the, if she wants to comment on that further. But the majority of the EFC voted to put into tranches of 20 million and then to.
And it doesn't have to be 6 million the next time. It could be 2, it could be 3, whatever. Part of the point was that we're not going to need all that money right away. We can't possibly spend it right away. This is a 3-year project, I believe. And I would ask to be reminded, I believe that for every $1 million that we don't appropriate, there's a great deal of savings to the taxpayer. And there is the ability at any point for the commissioners to appropriate the rest.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Representative Gall. Representative Aaron, well.
Yeah.
So my question to our chair of the EFC is, why would we then want to subject ourselves to potentially and more probable higher interest rates on borrowing money further out into the future? And why would we also want to tie the hands of our commissioners if they believe that we could use more than $20 million in bonding? Yeah.
I believe most of the testimony we've heard is that this will be a project paid for over 3 years. Therefore, it seemed to the majority of the EFC that not putting us set in debt totally for that amount of money, and I believe the amount per million saved per year, and I would ask to be corrected by the EFC if I'm wrong, is in the range of $300,000 per year, right? So that is.
Okay, all right, thank you, Representative Gall. And Commissioner Nelson, you wanted to add something?
Well, what if interest rates are 2% higher in a year and a half when we need it? You're correct, we're not gonna need it all right away. So if the interest rates are 2% higher in a year, what's that at?
And if they're not, and they're lower.
You told us that was gonna happen last year, that the feds were gonna keep interest rates low.
No, I didn't. Tell you.
No. But I mean, I just be curious to hear the math. Yeah, I assume you've done the math.
Okay, all right, thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Representative Murchie, you had a question? Or...
Sure. I think the other part to it is that we don't know what the final cost of the project is going to be. We've been kicking around numbers between 57 million and 63 million. That's a $6 million swing. If it comes in at 57 million, we don't need it. So why borrow it?
It's just.
Well, you gonna put it in the savings account?
Well, I mean, you told us, let's see, future lumber futures are coming
just
down.
be cheaper. Just triangle running.
All right, yeah, I'm sorry. It's fine. We'll go. My crystal ball says interest rates will be high.
Okay, all right, Representative Sullivan, please. This is
Just a very simple question, but important one, I think. We've got a draft of the resolution that we received yesterday morning. We've got one here. They appear to be identical. Can you confirm whether they are or not?
Yeah, I just wanted to hit the watermark off of the.
That's, we anticipated that, but I just want to be sure.
Okay, and any objection? Yes, Commissioner Osgood, please.
The only thing I have a problem with borrowing.
or bonding 20 and then having the ability to bond the other 6 million. That appears to be, to me, to be what the inflation factor was put into this thing. And I think that inflation factor is going to be for real and hopefully not even cost us more. If we bond 20 million, and you're right, we're not going to spend it all right away. But if that money is in an interest-bearing account, the other 6 million, it will definitely offset any interest increase that could come, and it would be in our favor at that point. That I kind of do my accounting in a manner of what is going to be the best way for me in the end.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Osgood. I'm sorry, Representative Spilsbury. Appreciate your patience.
I just want to try to clarify a little bit on Commissioner Nelson's question. For 6 million, it's about 300,000 a year. It's probable that it doesn't have to be spent even if it's necessary for 3 years. So you're talking about $900,000 or more. And anything you borrow now, it is definite that you owe the interest. Anything that you might be able to defer, you at least save on the interest for the time deferred. And you may end up not having to borrow at all, and then you save indefinitely. So it's a judgment call, and the math is clear.
What would be the interest on that money sitting at whatever the interest rate is now?
My crystal ball doesn't tell me.
Okay, all right, just be careful of running.
Yeah,
debates
yeah,
here.
I'm sorry.
I know we feel strongly about this, Commissioner Nelson. Yes, you had some
So
quickly, and then Representative Aaron has a question.
my understanding, so it would be the of another delegation to make that call.
No, the authorization for the entire 26 million is contained in this resolution. It's then up to the commissioners to determine what's
All right,
appropriate.
okay, all right. That makes me feel a lot better. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Aaron, please.
So my question is, if the commissioners deem that we do need $26 million right at the start, does this not tie their hands to be able to get that funding that they need up front?
I would suggest that we have the $2 million, am I correct? Mr. Ferland, right, in hand. We have the ARPA funds already in hand, and we have the capital reserve in hand. So we certainly have more than enough to get started. And I would suggest that maybe suggesting the first tranche of $20 million is probably higher than we would need to do, and we could do even less. But that's, again, that's up to the commissioners. We've given them, we've suggested that 20 million and then defer on the 6 and see what happens.
Representative Sullivan, please.
I would just point out that there's no date on the second tranche. So if there's a need to actually do that second bond sooner rather than later, the commissioners have the ability to do that.
All right, thank you. Representative Aaron, and I will, go ahead, please.
My question about that then is, would they not be incurring extra costs in going to get a second bond? Manager Ferland, would that be the case where it would take more time and more money to then seek a second bond?
Well, certainly there'd be some administrative and transaction fees associated with it, depending on which method we use to finance it. I couldn't be able to give you an estimate of what those would be right now, but.
Do those
It all
fees
depends.
depend upon how much you are bonding for?
Correct. Yep, it's partially what drives it. It'd be the method is probably the bigger driver if we were to sell our own bonds or go through the bond bank. And then if we go through the bond bank out of cycle or within cycle, all of those variables drive how much it costs to obtain the financing, but we wouldn't have to pay the bond counsel because that's the way this was written. Those costs would not be incurred again.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson. you want
My
to speak?
apologies, my fault for apparently not sitting in on the EFC meeting that I was thinking it was 20 now and leaving it up to another delegation, which you can't do, but the fact that it's all, your explanation made me feel way better that it's authorized and we just don't take it all at once. That works for me.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Okay, so as I said, I'm trying to be careful here. Yes, Representative Tanner, please, you had a question.
Yeah, I just want an official confirmation that what we're seeing is the final product from the attorney, or it's not, because the other one is labeled as a draft, but this is her final for this.
It is, and there were no changes between what was stamped as a draft and the final. I simply removed the watermark. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Representative Tanner, Manager Furlong. Other questions from the delegation? And this should be, and I don't, again, if anybody from the public hearing is still open on this second part, of the supplemental appropriation. Yes, Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I seek wisdom in case anybody out there does what I just did and add these numbers. So the 20 million they're allowed to go get right now, the total is like 59 and change. If you do the 26, then I think we're at 67 million and change. And the opening paragraph that folks will read and remember says a project for 63 million. So can somebody explain to me why the range and why the numbers don't add up?
I saw this yesterday.
Manager Furlong, maybe, I know you've been working with bond counsel. Can you explain this?
It had mentioned before, it just provides a little bit of flexibility in case one of those components of the funding stack doesn't quite come out to the penny as written here. That's where in the resolve paragraph, the phrase up to. It refers to the 7 million for ARPA and the 5 million for capital reserves. So the total authorization in the first whereas paragraph sets the project limit at 63 million. So that means if the guaranteed maximum price comes back in at $63 million and 1 penny, we would have to come back to the delegation to get an updated authorization to exceed 63 million. But the way that it's worded in the resolve paragraph does give us flexibility that if the 40% cost share from Gopher doesn't quite add up to 25.2 million, because that's really the only variable at this point that we're not sure exactly what we'll get. I am happy to report that the application package just went live about 40 minutes ago. So 3 minutes before this meeting started, but I haven't had time to read it, obviously. So it just allows us to use more of the ARPA funds or capital reserve to make sure that we can meet the number of the guaranteed maximum price, as long as it doesn't exceed 63 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Representative Sullivan, please.
That's good news that you've got the application. Are you anticipating that application will give the fine details on how the forgivable loan will work? Because I would really like to know how the forgivable loan gets forgiven. And I'm assuming that perhaps that application might have that information.
I know in this paragraph, right here, it confirms that it's a 0% interest rate. And if we meet all the requirements, which I think it's just complete the project, then I mean, I can't tell you specifically what the mechanism of forgiving it is, but I expect we'll learn a lot more as we go through the application. But this does confirm that it's a 0% interest rate, and I think supports the.
Could you please read that?
What was that?
Generally, the terms of the forgivable loan will provide principal funds for approved expenditures at a 0% interest rate and require the project to be completed by a set date and meet certain project and reporting requirements. Disbursement of funds under the forgivable loan on eligible expenses will be made either on a reimbursement basis or as part of a drawdown schedule, depending on the size and nature of the project. So again, this tracks with what I had been told by the deputy director of Gopher all along, was that this application was still going to provide as much flexibility for us and for Gopher as possible to make sure that we can efficiently and effectively and in a timely manner, because timing really matters for this, because if we don't have it obligated by 2024, it will be at risk. not an expense by 2026, but I don't think either of those will be an issue for us. But so a lot more detail yet to come as we submit the application process. There will be opportunities for some back and forth and some clarification, but the premise is we're not going to be charged any interest. And once the project is complete and they're satisfied, then that loan balance will go to zero.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, please. Representative Sullivan.
On the same issue, do you know of any circumstances whereby we would have to repay the loan?
I don't, well, I mean, if we didn't complete it on time, it would be a big one, but that would have been the same for even a grant. You know, even just a straight grant has conditions attached to it that if you don't comply with all the terms, you are subject to pay back the funding. So I think the terms are really identical to when it was originally structured as a grant versus the forgivable loan. It's just really the name change is really all it seems like at this point, based on what I've read and been told by Gopher.
All right, okay. All right, Commissioner Nelson, yes.
Derek, can you punt that back up one more time? The next paragraph, upon completion of satisfaction of terms of the agreement, the loan will be forgiven. If project is not completed or the agreement difference violated, you may have to pay it back. That's the same with a grant. If you don't meet the stipulations of a grant, they'll look for it back.
Okay, all right, okay. Yes, sir. Representative Merchant, please.
Some area heard about reimbursement of expenses versus the loan given to us up front. If that's the case, will we have enough money to pay for it and then apply for a reimbursement? Because with the magnitude of the project, I want to have us get in a situation where we're going to have to spend the money, which may not have, we don't have the loan. Yeah, we're waiting for that money to be reimbursed. I just want to get into a quandary where all of a sudden we're going down a road here and we have to spend the money, which we don't have to spend in order to get it back. It's catch-22, basically.
Right. That's the phrase, or as part of a drawdown schedule, is the extra piece that Gopher inserted for that very reason. That was last week's topic of discussion with Gopher was, will you send us a check for 25 million
Right.
that we can then put in the bank account and earn a little bit of interest on? He said, no, that won't happen. So generally on a project like this, we'll have monthly requisitions. So for the work that was done for the prior month, the contractor will submit. Generally, we have to pay the bill up front and then submit that for reimbursement. They've pledged that process would be very quick. So it's a matter of cash flow. But I also told him from October to the early part of December, that's when our bank accounts are at their lowest point because we're waiting for the property tax revenues from the municipalities. I said, so what if we get into a point where we can't cover those checks? Because this could be a $3 million a month expenditure when we're really into the full swing of construction. And that's where they said they could help us with a drawdown schedule that would be an alternative to just applying for reimbursements for bills that we've had to cover up front. And that would allow us to navigate that without a negative impact on our bank account. So sorry, that was a little bit of a convoluted answer, I think, but they'll work with us to make sure that we don't bounce checks. They understand that that's not a good thing.
Thank you, Manager for Representative Merchant. Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
Follow up with that discussion. Did I hear you say that the application for the Gopher money, 50 million, is out there and we have competition for it? And how much competition? I'm drawing the question to why do we want to cut ourselves short of 20 million if we're going to be a shortfall because of competitive factors on the 50 million out of Gopher? And then we got to come back to the well one more time, more administrative problems, a higher interest rate, and projects have a strange way of escalating during the course of construction. I think 20 and then 6 is short-sighted. I think we ought to go for the 26 million right off the bat. And can you reflect on how much competition we can expect on that Gopher application?
I'd be speculating. I know other counties, once this program was announced, started, if they didn't have projects in the planning phase, started talking about getting projects in the planning phase in order to capitalize on it. I know of only one other county that has gone beyond just the planning and discussion phase and seem to be taking steps by way of hiring an architect, and that's Stratford County with a project that's reported to be roughly 160 million, although that's to do two things: build a brand new nursing home and then also renovate their old nursing home into some sort of, I don't know if it's a transitional or a lower income housing facility. But it's a big project. I don't know where they are on the timeline. I don't know if they'd be far enough along to realistically compete for these funds. But I also know that other counties are at least asking some questions. But again, how far along they are, I don't know. I think if I heard you correctly, Representative Stapleton, I don't know if we're mixing the money that we'd be asking is pegged to a formula, which is going to be up to 40% of the eligible expenses. Based on our total cost of 63 million that we're expecting, we'd be eligible for up to about 25.2 million. So if we are approved for that, then we'll have that to spend through Gopher, in addition to the bond, which is authorized for 26 million, even though it's in the two tranches. So I don't know if that.
Yeah, so the risk factor, there was not a risk factor there that where they're going to fall short on the Gopher money.
The 63 million included an additional roughly 11% that we're estimating for inflation based on the last cost estimate we had. So we feel pretty confident that we can get this done for 63. If we're wrong, we'll have to come back to the delegation. Competition for the Gopher program? Yeah, absolutely. I think there is competition for that. But if we have been authorized 26 million for a bond and we get the full 40%, which equates to 25.2 million from Gopher, plus the other funding components, we should have enough money to go get this done. But again, if the project economics dictate otherwise, then we'll have to come back and ask for more.
All right, okay, Commissioner Nelson. you can- and
Two things, yeah, I can't, other than the Stratford County, but just from the grapevine, counties are gearing up projects and that money isn't going to sit around for long. And the other thing, it's my understanding that the Gopher money is in Concord. We're not going to be fighting with the feds for it. We're going to be looking with state people that you all know and love. And the governor's told more than one of us he's behind it and got his thumb on the scale. So I don't think we need to worry about getting, them working with us to keep it coming.
All right, thank you. Representative Aaron, please.
My question is to our county manager. With this resolution for the bond, is the funding included in this bond sufficient enough for us to go out and get a maximum price?
As currently written?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so contractors won't have a problem with the way this funding stack is put together?
No, that's why the importance of that first whereas paragraph that sets the maximum limit, which communicates to them the delegations, basically the approval for the total amount of the project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from the delegation? We are still in the public hearing phase, so I don't know if any members of the public want to testify for or against, but otherwise I'm going to open it for the questions of the delegation, please, before I close the hearing and then we get into the debate. Representative Kelley, did you have a question?
No, I was trying to point to her.
And I'm a little, okay, yes, Manager Furlong. go
Sorry,
ahead.
Chair Cloutier, I just wanted to also clarify, it's in the motion for the supplemental appropriation, but to be clear, the $650,000 would be recommended to be taken from capital reserves. So therefore, there would be no impact on taxes for the FY23 budget.
Okay, so this is for this fiscal year, right?
For this fiscal year.
600 from the fiscal 2023 budget.
Correct. It'd just be sourced from capital reserves, not from property taxes. So
Okay,
it would not
Thank
change
you for
anything
that.
from what was previously approved by the convention.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? Representative Spills, by any chance, I thought way back, I forgot. You have any questions? I'm so you look like for a while you were, thank you. I just want to be sure everybody in the delegate has a chance to ask questions. Yes. Yes, go ahead, Representative Merchant.
Glad to hear that you talk about the capital reserves versus going into the budget per se. However, when I look at the $650,000, is that a one-time payment or is that going to be something that's done? If I look at subsequent budgets coming down the pike, is that $650,000 an annual amount or is that a semi-annual amount? So therefore it's $1.3 million annually, but we're only having to pay one part of it, one payment. So on an annual basis, what are we looking at as far as the amount that we have to put into the budget to cover the bond?
So if in FY '23, it would be an interest-only payment. So it would be a one-time payment. It's less than what the full payment will be. If you're asking me what the impact on the FY '24 budget will be, it does depend on the size of the tranche. I believe a $20 million tranche. I don't have these numbers memorized, but I know that for next year's budget, it would be roughly an 8.5% impact on the taxes for the full payment based on a $20 million tranche. But if the second part of if the second tranche is executed rather quickly, well, that would change everything because that would probably impact FY '24 as well. But if it is delayed a year or more, then it would be another impact down the road if we need it at all.
Thank
you. Further questions from the delegation during this public hearing phase? I assume nobody else from the public wants to testify for or against the supplemental appropriation. Seeing none, so there's no more questions. I just wanted to be sure. I'm going to close then this second public hearing on the supplemental appropriation. The hearing is now closed. I will now go to item 3, Executive Finance Committee recommendation on the bond for Sullivan County Healthcare Renovation. Representative Gottlieb, would you care to comment or have anything?
I think I've already spoken to that, and it is, the recommendation is in the authorization. And the recommendation was to go for the 26 million in total, but that to recommend that 20 million would be the first take and it could be less, and that the rest up to 6 million would be available.
Okay, thank you, Representative Gottlieb. Any questions of Representative Gottlieb from members of the delegation? Okay, so are we ready to, I will move on then to item number 4. And I just want to be clear, we're going to take, I guess there'll be 2 votes. The first vote on the bond recommendation requires a 2/3, and I think since we have 12 members of the delegation here, that would be 8. And if that were to pass, then we would go on to vote on the supplemental appropriation, which only requires a simple majority. So I just want to clarify this to be very clear about what's going to happen. Yes, Representative Aaron.
I am submitting an amendment to this non-con resolution, and I'd be happy to pass it.
Okay, are you going to submit that? Okay.
Yep. So my proposal is to strike the language that says in the resolved paragraph, strike the language that says with the first tranche in an amount not to exceed $20 million. Because I don't believe that we need to micromanage this process with our commissioners. I think that they have the judgment and the common sense to know how much they need to borrow and when. So even if they decide to do multiple tranches of borrowing, I think we should leave it up to them to decide how much they need to borrow and not make any constraints and make their job more difficult and perhaps make it more expensive for our taxpayers. So I propose to have that language struck from this resolution. And that's my amendment.
Okay, that's your amendment. Do I have a second on that? A second by Representative Stapleton. Okay, we're looking over the amendment now. Any questions from the delegation about this? And I probably should be directed to Representative Aaron. Representative Sullivan, please.
I actually have a question for the county manager.
Okay, go ahead,
He's not here. Well,
Oh, okay, he stepped out.
I just want to make sure I'm in line.
There's an extra copy here you can send down that way.
But I don't know if there's anything, anybody wants to ask anything of Representative Aaron, you know, so we're clear about what her amendment is going to propose. All right, I think I need to get some water, so I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess. I don't know where the county manager has gone, but I need to get some water. And the rest of us go to the bathroom and be back here in 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
The music.
I think there may be some extras on the end of the table there.
You wouldn't know.
I'll tell you what, here.
No, no, it's okay.
Here, all I have to do is cross this out. I'll give this to you.
So you're seeking that the full 26 million be.
I'm saying that in here, we're giving them the authorization to do one or more tranches, but we're not restricting how much in each tranche.
Another question.
Okay.
I'm writing a story about this.
So 603, 542, 9511, and just ask for extension 273.
Call me at my phone number.
And then I'll talk to you about that.
I'll get you in touch with my husband.
Okay.
How to get in touch with him.
I'll give everybody another couple minutes. I want to be sure we give bathroom breaks, plenty of water. I was getting very thirsty. I don't want anybody getting ice. So my brother, younger brother, was just bumped wrong.
That gopher is just exactly like a construction. And I made it. They send you the money. They don't run the network. They won't give it to us all at once, according to the way that's written. They'll give it to us as we spend it, which is fine. Because, you know, let's do this fine thing. Let's have it on our can instead of their can, making money while they're building. That's what I always. Leave that and then start happening. Start happening.
Okay, I'm gonna call this Out of recess, please. Okay, thank you, everybody, but I was getting very dehydrated. I do not want anyone fainting or getting dehydrated during this meeting. Take it back. Again, Manager Ferrell, when you left, we have, some, I guess, a question, so that's one of the reasons for the recess. But, okay, so someone had a question of the county manager. I forget who it was. Okay, yes. Ryan. Okay, well, he left, so I'm sorry about that. We'll have to wait for him, but does anybody have any other questions about Representative Aaron has submitted an amendment seconded by Representative Stapleton. On the amendment, it just requires a simple majority vote, but if let's assuming the amendment passes or fails or whatever, then the bond still has to pass by 2/3. Okay, Representative Sullivan, you had a question of the county manager.
Oh, I did.
Yes.
Just to be clear, would this amendment cause any concerns with the bond attorney? I've been very reticent about making any amendments to a document that you've been going back and forth with the bond attorney with for a couple weeks. So where does this stand with the bond attorney?
I'm always reticent to speak in behalf of an attorney when I myself am not. I don't think philosophically she would have an objection to us making it one number as opposed to the multiple tranches. I'm sure she would want to take the final version and review it to make sure that it met with her approval, but she's not in the business of telling us how, you know.
I'm talking,
okay.
I'm just talking language, not the.
I mean, I would have to have her review it. I wouldn't be comfortable speaking on her behalf without her getting a chance to see the post amended version.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Representative Aaron,
Yeah,
please.
all this amendment does is strike out the language that puts a restriction on the amount of any tranche. It still allows for one or more tranches of bonding to happen. So it doesn't, I don't see that this substantially changes anything to this resolution. It just allows, it still allows for multiple tranches of bonding, but it removes a restriction of how much. So they can elect, the commissioners can elect to do $15 million in first tranche and, you know, more money in a second tranche. It just gives them flexibility. And I think flexibility is something that our commissioners would welcome in this process.
Okay, thank you, Representative Aaron. Now, anybody else for or against Representative Aaron's amendment? Yes, Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm for it. I mean, one of the metaphorical things here is expressing our commitment to the project. I realize we've done a lot here to do that, but then pumping the brakes on the amount on the first one could be perceived that we're blinking. It doesn't impact the mechanics of this either way. They can still do 20 million on the first one. They can do 20 million and 1 cent, doesn't matter. But I think it shows that we have a more solid commitment to the project. So I'll vote for the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Representative Smith. Any further? Yes, Representative Stapleton, followed by Representative Spilsbury.
I agree with Representative Smith's analysis on that, providing the commissioners and the manager flexibility as needed during the course of administrating the start of the project is important. But I also have a question of the county manager relative to the bond. We, in the past, have talked about prepay without penalty. What's the status of the bond as you are going for it now? If we had taken too much, is there a prepay without penalty to pay off?
So if we end up borrowing more than we ultimately need?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I would have to ask the bond bank staff on that. I believe it would be able to be repaid, but I don't know. So I would need to verify that.
Okay, yes, follow up, Representative Stapleton.
Yep, I think we've had earlier discussions relative to some bonds will issue without that option and some will. But I think that gives us some flexibility if you can go for a prepay off without a substantial increase in the interest rates. It's a balancing act. It's a high wire act, but.
Okay, thank you, Representative Spilsbury, please.
I oppose the amendment because I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it improves where the EFC ended up. The EFC amendment was extremely limited. All it did was change the figure, both where it was written in words and where it was in parentheses in digits, from 26 to 20. So this amendment now strikes out the entire phrase that the bond attorney had in here. I don't know what her opinion of that might be. But the flexibility point, which Representative Aaron made and which Representative Smith echoed, I completely agree with. So the ESC amendment allows all of that flexibility. They can borrow 20 million in the first tranche or only 15 million if they wish. And the second tranche is not limited to 6 million. It can be anything there that up to 26 million in the aggregate. So the flexibility is not enhanced by the amendment. The flexibility is there in the EFC recommendation.
Thank you, Representative Spillier. Representative Merchant, please.
I'll be voting against the amendment. Basically, I'm not an attorney, but I've heard time and again about bond resolutions. When we change language in the resolution that our attorney prepared without the attorney signing off on it, I don't want to see another delay because it gets to the attorney. The attorney says, I can't accept it. So we're back here again, back to delaying this. And I don't want this to be seen as another delay in this project. We've come this far in it. So I think the flexibility still remains there. But the opportunity for it to be reviewed by the attorney and then all of a sudden the attorney says there's an issue with it, brings us back to the table. That's just another delay. So therefore, I don't think it's going to be appropriate to approve the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Merchant. Further questions or comments? Are we ready for the vote? I'm sorry, Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couldn't disagree more. We have had amendments to bond resolutions in the past, and it didn't require legal review. And I'll restate my question that I had at our last meeting. What has changed that requires this level of like lockdown on everything? As a simple change, I've seen bigger changes in bond resolutions. The sky didn't fall, it all worked fine. I don't know. I just think we're setting a dangerous precedent by not having a collaborative government model here and requiring everything to go out to review to attorneys. Don't like it. Still voting for the amendment because I've seen this delegation under control by both parties do their job effectively. And I don't know, I'm getting a little resentful of being told that we can't do it now. And I don't know where that's coming from.
Okay, thank you, Representative Smith. Further questions or comments? Yes, Representative Kellen, please.
I will vote for the amendment as been through this kind of thing as selectman. And I believe that it doesn't behoove us to tie the hands, which appears to me be the deliberate case here of the commissioners. So I don't believe in doing that.
Okay, thank you, Representative Kellen. Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
I disagree with the opinion that this would have to go back to the attorney and cause further delay. We're removing a mechanical impediment and liberalizing what the administrators and the commissioners can do in moving the project forward. You know, we've stepped too deep into what their procedures would be, best practices. And I think therefore removing the 20 million cap will enable them to go forward with the flexibility as they see fit.
Thank you, Representative Stapleton. Any other further questions or comments on Representative Aaron's amendment? Are we ready for the vote? I assume you want a roll call, Representative?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So clerk, whenever you're ready, if you could please call the roll on Representative Aaron's amendment.
Representative Aaron,
Yes.
Representative Cowan,
Yes.
Representative Gotland,
No,
Representative Merchant.
No.
Clerk votes no. Representative Rollins,
Yes.
Representative Smith,
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury,
No.
Representative Stapleton,
Yes.
Representative Tanner,
No.
Vice Chair Sullivan,
No.
Chair.
No. What's that?
5 noes and 7 yeses.
All right, so the amendment fails.
7 noes and 5 yeses.
7 no's.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry
all
about
right.
that.
All right, thank you, Representative
My
O'Hearn.
things backwards.
All right,
it's in writing.
okay, so, all right, so the amendment is defeated. Representative Sullivan, I recognize you for a motion.
I move that the delegation accept the resolution as presented to us today. And I would like to speak to my motion.
Okay, please proceed.
Need a second.
Okay, all right. Do I need a second? Yes, we need a second.
I'll second.
A second by Representative Merchant.
It's taken a long time, but I think we are there. I think we all of us are desperate to have this nursing home taken care of. And I believe this resolution does it. I will acknowledge that I was a little bit uncomfortable with the forgivable loan, but I appreciate the fact that Gopher came through with minutes to spare, because I think their explanation was helpful. And I guess I want to point out to everybody that the delay was very unfortunate, but the delay got us $26 million from Gopher that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I'm not happy about the delay. I am happy about the $26 million. We may have been voting on a $45 million bond otherwise. So I support this. I urge all of my delegation colleagues to support it as well.
Thank you, Representative Sullivan. Okay, further comments either for or against this motion of Representative Sullivan? Yes, Representative Aaron, please.
Well, first and foremost, I certainly don't appreciate the cap that was put on this tranche issue within this resolution. But I have worked very, very hard over the past 4 years on this project. And it's way past due to be done. I am very pleased at the work that I was able to do with various colleagues in this past year to come to the point where we could get some Gopher funding and ARPA money. So I'm very, very happy about that. And I can't wait until this project gets started. So I will be supporting this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Representative Aaron. Other further, Representative Tanner, followed by Representative Spilsbury.
Thank you. I would just like to, again, say how much I appreciate Representative Sullivan's work and the work of his committee that have brought, all of us kind of together over the funding for this, that it's been something that we've all wanted, and it's something that we were moving together towards, maybe in different ways, but I'll be supporting the bond.
Thank you, Representative Tanner. Representative Spilsbury, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I enthusiastically support this resolution, and I also want to give credit to the really constructive use of the last year, both by the administrator and his staff and by the work group. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So
Please continue.
it was not a pleasant thing to put this on hold a year ago, but it has proved worthwhile. So today's the day, and I look forward, I hope to seeing a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Representative Spilsbury. Any other further questions or comments from the delegate? Yes, Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my own curiosity, the third paragraph, the very last phrase that we are voting to authorize the commissioners to take any other action. I get that. or to pass any other vote relative thereto. Can someone tell me the scenario where the commissioners may not vote on something without our authorization? What that thing might be?
Yeah, okay, is that Manager Furlong, was that something the bond attorney wanted to put in there? or-
Oh, absolutely. That's,
Okay,
this
so
is her,
she signed, you put it in because she wanted it in there. Is that what you're saying?
she put it in there.
She put it in there.
Yes.
She put it in there. Okay. All right, okay. Yes, Representative Spilsbury, please.
From a legal perspective, I really implies that we're authorizing the commissioners to take any actions necessary consistent with this resolution.
Thank you for that clarification. Further questions or comments from the delegation before we vote? Yes, Representative. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
okay,
I
go
also
ahead,
will be
please. I'm sorry, I
supporting-
couldn't remember your name. Representative Rollins, I'm sorry, I had a mental block.
I
Getting old like
have them all the
everybody
time,
else.
Mr. Chair. I also will be supporting this. The time has come, it's been a long road, and it's time that we showed that we care about our senior citizens and their well-being going into the future, having a redesigned nursing home where it'll be much more comfortable and much safer for them. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Representative Rollins. Any other further questions or comments? Yes, Representative Merchant, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just also want to reiterate the recognition for Representative Sullivan leading the work group. Also, I think we need to recognize Representative Aaron leading the charge and getting the money from Gopher, along with Representative Spilsbury. It has truly been a team approach. We have worked across party lines. We have worked in a nonpartisan basis most of the time. I'm glad to see this come down to a final, hopefully today, to move forward on the project. It has been a long journey. It has not always been a pleasant journey, but it has been a rewarding journey. We're finally here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Representative Merchant. I think well spoken. Okay, so we are now ready for the vote. All right, unless somebody has any objection. Now, remember, this has to pass by 2/3. We have 12 representatives here today, so it's going to require at least 8 votes, okay? So if the clerk will please call the roll on the motion.
Representative Aaron,
Absolutely, yes.
Representative Callan,
Yes.
Representative Gottlieb,
Yes.
Representative Merchant,
Yes.
clerk votes yes. Representative Rollins,
Yes.
Representative Smith,
Yes.
Representative Spilsbury,
Yes.
Representative Stapleton,
Yes.
Representative Tanner,
Yes.
Representative Sullivan,
Yes.
The chair.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
12 yeses.
12 yes, you voted unanimous vote. Motion passes. The bond is approved. We'll go on to the next item, the supplemental appropriation. Now, just needs a simple majority, but I do need a motion to approve it.
Motion.
Motion by Representative Merchant. Do I have a second on that motion? Representative Aaron, I will take it as she seconds the motion. Okay, so now on any questions about this or comments before we take a vote, either from especially Representative Merchant or Representative Aaron? Okay, are we all set then? Ready for the vote? So please proceed. Will the clerk please call the roll on approving the supplemental appropriation?
This is in-
Yeah, okay.
We have read that.
You read it.
This, yeah, okay, the six, isn't it, no, the agenda says 63, I'm sorry.
Should I read
Okay,
the
all right,
motion?
all right.
So it's
All right,
on the ready, so there's no- Okay, I'll read the motion.
okay, all right, thank you, Representative Merchant.
Motion per RSA 24:14 (A) to approve a supplemental appropriation of $650,000 to the fiscal year 2023 budget for the purpose of making the bond payment for the Sullivan County Healthcare Renovation Project. These funds will be secured through the county's capital reserve fund.
Okay, thank you, Representative Merchant. Again, I apologize for the confusion earlier with what was on the agenda and what was in the actual motion, which legally we have to have for a vote. All right, so the clerk, when the clerk is ready, if the clerk could please call the roll.
Representative Aaron,
Yes.
Representative Callan,
Yes.
Representative Gottlieb,
Yes.
Representative Merchant,
Yes.
clerk votes yes. Representative Spilsbury,
Yes.
Representative Stapleton,
Yes.
Representative Silverman.
So me,
I'm using this one, but apparently it's a little bit different than than the original, so I'm sorry about this, out of whack.
I didn't hear, did you say me?
Yes.
Yes.
Representative Tanner,
Yes.
Representative Rollins,
Yes.
Representative Smith,
Yes.
and the clerk,
Okay.
I mean, the
Chair, yes.
Just testing it.
Okay, all right, very good, Mr. Clerk. Must have been from the last term.
12, yes.
12 yeses, no no's. Okay, again, the supplemental appropriation also passes. Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to review and approve the draft meeting minutes of the July 26, 2022 delegation meeting. And I know, I think everybody, Ms. Kellum sent out those earlier. You also have hard copies. I don't know if you've had a chance to look them over. So if you want to take a minute or two to look them over. Otherwise, whenever anybody's ready, I will entertain a motion to approve these minutes. Yes, Representative Aaron, please.
So on page 5.
Page 5.
It says projected cost of project June 2022, $57 million. Estimated project cost as of January 2022. Is that as of January 2022 or prior to? I think there was a question as to when that project cost was valid.
Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead, please, Rep.
I think that's my handout. So basically, when we got the estimate from the consultant, that estimate came in at $57 million. And then the $6 million is an inflation factor to bring us up to today.
Right.
And so that's how we get the $63 million total. In my view, well, bottom line is the minutes are accurate. That's what I passed out.
Thank you, Representative Sullivan. Yes, go ahead, please, Ms. Collins.
I do have a correction.
Okay.
Same page, it's the third sentence. And it says 57 page.
Okay, so which page is this on?
Same page.
The same
Same page, I'm
5.
sorry. 57 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so are there any other corrections to these minutes? If there are none, I will entertain a motion to accept these minutes with the corrections. Yes, Representative Stapleton, please.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second on that motion? Second by Representative Tanner. Are we ready for the vote? Do we, is it all right with a voice vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving the July 26, 2022 meeting minutes with the corrections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes of July 26, 2022 are approved. Next, we have some minutes from the EFC of July 29th. I don't know if this just as EFC members. I don't know if you wanted to take a vote now. I don't know if you're going to have another.
Do we want to do that now, or do we? I believe there were some corrections wanted to be made.
Correct. I think Representative Aaron wanted some corrections to be made to it. I do have them. I would like to redraft the minutes if it's okay with the chair.
Right.
And at that point in time, bring them back to the EFC for appropriate.
Yeah, and I believe you can do them at your next meeting, whenever you have it. Okay, now we go to item number 7. Any other old business? Any other old business? Okay, number 8, any new business?
Where's the party?
Okay, I think it is time, I think we've done our business, and I want to say before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I think it was a productive meeting, and finally, we were able to come together and approve the nursing home renovation. At times, it wasn't easy, and we had our disagreements, but we did it. And I'm very pleased that we had a unanimous delegation vote. And I think that hopefully sends a strong signal to our constituents that we value the nursing home. And sometimes we don't always, we can overcome our political disagreements and unite around something that's common and something that would benefit our entire country. And I'm very pleased today that everything went well. Unless somebody else has something to add, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes.
I can. I just want to recognize Mrs. Parent for